Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Radical Freedom. I'm Kurt Waldrop. I had a new video that I was going to post this week on racism, but then we had the Florida shooting and I decided I was going to go ahead and film this and switch them. So with all the craziness on social media, I just thought this would be a little bit more appropriate. Seems like every time there's a mass shooting, someone on the left, usually a chorus of people, start screaming that they want to ban guns. Now, if the gun involved in the shooting was an AR-15, sometimes when it wasn't an AR-15, that becomes the specific target. It's the AR-15 that they want to ban. It's this horrible military assault weapon and it needs to go away. Well, you hear people bemoaning all of these high-powered military weapons on the streets, and you get the questions of, and really, I saw this on Twitter yesterday. Why do you need an AR-15 shooting 600 rounds a minute to go deer hunting? 600 rounds a minute? Well, and obviously, you really don't. But do I have a constitutional right to own one, as long as I'm not committing a crime with it? Well, even if it was capable of shooting 600 rounds a minute, which it isn't, the answer would be, yeah. Read the Second Amendment. Remember that word, that line at the end, shall not be infringed. Can't infringe my right. That means, yeah, I can own it. No worries. So, the first myth that I'd like to dispel is that while an AR-15 may look like the military M16 or M4 carbine, it isn't an assault rifle at all. Assault rifles are selective fire weapons that can shoot one bullet at a time, or they can turn into a machine gun with just the push of a single button. And the AR-15 is only a semi-automatic rifle. You pull the trigger one time, one bullet comes out. Hey folks, newsflash. No military in the world uses AR-15 rifles since it couldn't do the job that a military would want in a rifle for its soldiers. It's just not, it's not a military rifle. The next myth is that the AR-15 is a high-powered super rifle. Well, let me show you something. Let's see if we can get a close-up on this. Here is a bullet that would be fired from the AR-15. Here is the bullet that would be fired from the average hunting rifle. This is a 30-06. Can you see the difference? This one does have a larger projectile. Has a lot more gunpowder behind it. So you can see how much gunpowder. You can see the size of the actual bullet that would come out of the rifle. This bullet could penetrate cinder blocks without even trying, while the AR-15 bullet, which is, if you want to get into it, it's a 5.56 millimeter or a .223 caliber. This is a glorified .22 bullet. Not really all that powerful. So, can a .22 kill a human? Well, yeah, that little tiny .22 that is this with less powder behind it, according to the FBI, about 16% of homicides in Philadelphia are from .22 caliber weapons. But what about the AR-15? What percent of homicides are linked to it and other rifles that are similar to it? Again, according to the FBI, less than 2% of homicides in the United States are committed by these so-called assault weapons. So what makes the AR-15 an assault weapon? Because they like to make a lot of play on that. Some say that the AR stands for assault rifle. It's just another myth. It actually stands for Armalite rifle, Armalite being the first company to manufacture it. More than anything else, the AR-15 is called an assault rifle because it looks like a military M16. This is mine, by the way. I've made my own modifications to it. But it has this pistol grip. They tend to be made out of black plastic, and yes, they can take high-capacity magazines. Although it can also take low-capacity magazines for hunting. So you can get a 5-round magazine if you want to go hunting with this thing, but what about hunting? Is this used as a hunting rifle? Well, short answer is yes. It can be used for deer hunting, but because of the small size of the bullet, honestly, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend that an AR-15 would be better suited for hunting smaller animals such as rabbits or varmint animals such as coyotes. So, but what's it good for then besides rabbit and coyote hunting? Well, it's an excellent weapon for home defense. It isn't super long, so it works well indoors. It has a lower powered bullet. No, not higher, but lower. So it's less likely to go through walls and hurt a bystander. It can accept a high-capacity magazine, but that's a good thing. You can defend yourself against more than a single attacker. Now, some would say, well, you need one bullet per attacker. Why would you need, how many times are you going to be attacked by 30 people? Okay. I train with handguns and rifles, and I train so that each one of my shots hits the target with a high degree of accuracy. When I was in the Army, I shot expert. But even highly trained police have emptied their weapons in the direction of a bad guy when all the adrenaline is flowing and people are shooting back, and they've hit nobody at all. So, yeah, more bullets is better, especially when you're defending yourself, your family, or your property. But some would ask, wasn't the Second Amendment really to allow for the ownership of muskets? Well, this is a flintlock rifle of the kind that would have been used in the American Revolution. It's a reproduction, but I just love this thing. This is the same rifle that was used as late as the American Civil War by some militia units and was used famously at the Alamo by Davy Crockett. It is a myth, however, that there were no semi-automatic weapons available at the time that the Second Amendment was written. Also, since this could be considered a military-grade weapon at the time that the amendment was written, I would say that since the purpose of the amendment was to allow citizens the ability to stand against the army if need be, and yes, the founders really said that, you can find it easily just by looking. So in that case, any military-grade weapon, including full automatic machine guns, would be protected by the Second Amendment. Now, yeah, people hear the words machine gun, they get terrified. But think about what the Second Amendment was for. The Supreme Court was really wrong when they allowed the Federal Firearms Act to become law. And remember that the Second Amendment is the only part of the Bill of Rights that includes the verbiage, shall not be infringed. I'd also like to say that if you really think that the Second Amendment only applies to 18th century muskets, you also think that the First Amendment, freedom of speech and freedom of the press, wouldn't apply to computers or cell phones? Would you believe that that only applies to actual speaking to people in voice and printing products produced by manual printers? Yeah, printing products produced by manual. Say that 5 times fast, I dare you. The last thing I'd like to address is gun control in general. It seems to me a very lazy way to look at the world, look at problems, to just blame a tool for what the user did with it. Using that same exact logic, we should be able to ban cars and trucks because of drunk driving fatalities. Just under 20,000 drunk driving fatalities a year on average, compared to 10,000, again, on average, annual firearm homicides. Maybe we should ban hammers, as there actually are between 500 and 600 murders with them a year versus about 100 with these assault-type weapons. Perhaps we should ban airplanes because on 9/11, 2001, airplanes were used to kill more than 2,996 people in the attacks in New York, and more than 6,000 more were left wounded. Just think, if we didn't have airplanes, we never would have had that problem. We could even go further and say we need to ban forks because forks make you fat. Come on, people. It's what people use things for. Some would argue that gun advocates need to give give a little, to compromise. Yeah, in 1934 we had the Federal Firearms Act, a law that went directly against the concept of the Second Amendment, shall not be infringed. In 1968 we had the Gun Control Act. 1986, the Firearms Owners Act, which sounds good if you're a firearm owner. It did have some things to protect firearms, but it also included yet more regulation. The 1993 Brady Handgun Violence Act. The 1994 Assault Weapons Ban. The 1995 Gun-Free School Zones Act. You know what? I think we've compromised more than enough already. And in fact, I would state to you, we need to push back and repeal all of these as being in opposition to what the Second Amendment stands for. Maybe they can compromise for a change. Look, a gun isn't good or evil. It's only a tool. Remember that every time an evil person uses a gun to harm others, the very first people that we want to show up are good guys with firearms. Dr. Gary Kleck, a criminologist from Florida State University, using numbers gathered from police reports and the FBI, estimates that approximately 2.6 million crimes a year are stopped by an armed citizen. Citizen with a gun. Police can't always be there, but anytime one of these armed citizens is there, usually that crime is stopped. So my conclusion? Banning guns isn't the answer. Criminals just ignore the law. They already ignore the law about murder and robbery. If we really want to keep our kids safe at school, my solution is to allow every single school, in fact, mandate every single school must allow that teachers can train up for concealed carry. Also, take some of that money that the Department of Education throws away on meaningless tripe every single year and hire extra armed security. There are out-of-work police officers, retired police officers, military that would be happy to train up and work to protect our students. Let's go a little further and put a large sign up directly out in front of the school. And instead of saying gun-free zone, state that some of the faculty and staff here are armed and they're trained to use their weapons. Now that's a sign that I really think would work. Question: can you think of a single time in history that a gun-free zone sign has prevented a crime? Really? Yeah, me either. Anyway. Well, thanks for watching my little rant. Please give me a thumbs up down below. Subscribe. Also go to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Radical Freedom. Now, the site always says it's out of print because it's a print-on-demand book. Just means that when you order one, they're printed up fresh for you and sent straight to your house. So, thanks again for watching. See you next time on Radical Freedom. Bye for now.